Ford was making the Model T out of wood. They had all this leftover sawdust, and they were like, we are accumulating so much sawdust. What can we do with it? And then some genius was like, hey, Henry, you can make charcoal out of it. So he makes Kingsford charcoal. It became the biggest charcoal company in the world from leftover byproduct. So his goal was to make cars. And he said, what can I do with the byproduct? Content has to be the sawdust. The second you start making content, you'll never make the product.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Scene Creative Podcast. Every once in a while, you have one of those conversations with somebody that is so full of insight that it really helps you to create new perspective, to shift maybe ways of thinking. And today, we're going to hear a conversation that I had with Zane Callister, which truly was one of those conversations for me. He's a producer, a musician, he's a dad, he's a husband, and honestly, a really great friend and a really great human being. This is definitely one of those episodes that you need to listen to the entire thing. I don't say that selfishly, I say that purely for your sake, because I really believe that the insight and perspective that you could gain from this episode could really change things for you in your own creative projects, in your life, in your rhythm and flow, in your week to week. I really think it could change a lot for you. So here we go, episode 2. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy this conversation with Zane. I want to hear about your family, your wife, and your kids. Let's just start super simple.
I'm married to an awesome woman named Brooke. She's super rad. We have the same last name because we are married, which is tight, which is Callister.
It's funny how that works.
It is kind of crazy, right? I have a daughter named River who turns 4 in about a month, actually, which is super fun.
Okay.
And I have a son named Shepherd. And, I mean, they're like the best. I love them so much.
That's awesome.
My wife is like, she's like an art director, creative director, runs a design agency basically called Studio 88. She's crazy because she's like, you and I were talking about this before, it's like everybody's crazy. It's just like there's good crazy and bad crazy. She's like good crazy.
Mm-hmm.
She's like good crazy in the form that she's equal parts creative and administrational.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, I literally don't even know that. I don't even know. That'd be like someone being like, yeah, people with 3 legs just walk on all 3 legs. I'd be like, what's that like? I only have 2. Like, you know, like I don't even know. So
that's not common at all.
No, it's not. And she's crazy. Like, it's just, I wouldn't say I envy her because I'm not supposed to envy anything.
Yeah,
but
especially your wife.
I admire it is what I should say. I absolutely admire it. My daughter River is so funny, man. She's a really smart kid. Like, was walking at 11 months, talking at 11 months, like knew her ABCs by 15 months. She's crazy smart, but and I don't know who that's from because I mean, like I said, I think my wife's brilliant, but like that's like some high aptitude stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
My son is 17 months and he's like, what's the show we were talking about? Have you ever seen the Wild Thornberrys when we were kids?
Yes.
The little boy that just runs around and grunts. That's my son, dude. He just grunts. He's just like. Just yell, points, and grunts. So we're like, okay. We have on both ends of the communication spectrum, if you will. But my daughter's amazing. She's really creative, loves to express herself, very expressive, a lot of feelings. She's a little girl, so a lot of feelings. She's really fun though. But yeah, it's funny having your dad be like a writer, producer in music, and your mom's like an art director. And we're both home on Fridays to spend time with our kids. I mean, it will be interesting the older we get. What of that will help them in their walk of life, and what of that will be a detriment because there are some normalcies they will not probably experience.
For sure.
So I don't know, but it's rad. I've got a beautiful family. I'm definitely very blessed in that way.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man. Thanks for sharing.
Of course.
I'm just curious off the bat. What are some of those normalcies you think that they're not going to get that a typical kid would get,
I mean, everything from you have the dynamic of some people's moms stay home and raise kids. We have a full-time nanny. My wife works from home part-time, and she goes and takes meetings other places. We both value being in our kids' lives, though. So, like, I do half days on Fridays. I make dinner for my family, 4 or 5 days a week. Like, we eat breakfast and dinner together. But my wife will come out and have lunch with, like, the nanny and the kids so that she's, like, spending quality time. Not necessarily, like, that hour as a time amount is important. It's the intentionality that is really important.
Yeah.
And our weekends, like, I feel like Americans are like weekend warriors. We
Yeah.
are not. We're like, what cafe are we? That's how I met you.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like doing what we do as a family, where it's like, what cafe are we going to? And we're going to, like, let the kids run around and be kids. Let them jump in puddles, let them touch different stuff and see things. And, my son is, like, allergic to everything. It's so crazy, bro. He's getting better, though, which is really awesome. But, like, he's, like, gluten-free and dairy-free.
Oh, man.
My daughter says he's gluten-free, which is, I think, how you're supposed to say it. None of us say that. But, yeah, so, like, we go out and find, like, gluten-free scones and sit and eat them and hang out and do stuff as a family and, like, make lunch and play. And then when the kids nap, it's usually like mom and dad nap, or there's like a few tasks we do around the house. And we just try to, like, prioritize, that, like, family time. But your question, sorry, was more, what are those, like, normal things? Well, like, some of what's normal, half of what's normal in America is, like, a mom is in the house raising the kids, whatever. Yep. The other half of what's normal is, like, mom and dad work corporate jobs for somebody else, which is awesome. It's it's what keeps America running, and they leave at, 7, 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, and they're home at 5 Monday through Friday. Where, like, Mondays I leave at 9, Tuesdays I leave at 8:15 and take River to school. Wednesdays, kind of whenever. Thursdays 8:15. Fridays I go in at noon. You know what I mean? And it's like, or it's like, hey, dad is going to go write with some people in Nashville. Like, do we just take the whole family and then just go do that? Or, like, my wife's had a couple really cool opportunities, where she needed to be somewhere for work. And so it's like, we'll all go, you know what I mean? And so take the family with us and stuff. So just kind of some of those things where it's like interestingly enough, if River can't comprehend this because she's only 4, but, like, we haven't done a ton of vacations, but we've traveled a lot as a family. Yep. I don't know if you feel that too.
Yeah.
Like, you were talking about your vacation coming up. That's a vacation.
Right.
But you just traveled to, like, New York or whatever. Did you take the kids?
We did, yeah.
That's so sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's cool about that, though, is the experience that they get, right?
Totally.
Because it's like, I think, especially, because we talk about this all the time. I don't know how you guys feel. Like, we've been in Kansas City for off and on for the last, like, 4 or 5 years. Yeah, great place to live.
Amazing.
Great for families. Great hub, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it can feel like a bubble sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think the thing I love about what you're saying is, like, as parents who want your kids to experience more than just the Midwest, maybe, more than just, like, because we have family here. I think you guys have family here.
We have family, like, 2 hours west.
Okay.
Basically.
So
3 hours west.
Relatively close.
Pretty close.
And so it's nice to be close to family with kids.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, how do you give them an opportunity to experience a more diverse culture, see people that don't look like them, maybe hear other languages. Like, honestly, like, it's the first time we went to New York. We got engaged in New York in 2017.
Wow.
And so my dad actually ran the New York Marathon. And so we went to see him do that, and I proposed at the top of the Rockefeller while we were there.
Legend.
And but that was the first time I'd ever been, and we were so focused on, like, that I never really focused on, like, the city. And we were there for, like, 2 days. It was real quick. We were there for 5 days, and I don't know, just to have kids in an environment, even in LA, even just to have kids in an environment where, like, you may hear Italian, you may hear, like, all these different languages. Like, there's a good chance you're gonna walk down the street and hear everything but English.
Sure.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah, it's like culture obviously is not becoming homogenized. It's just becoming available because social media.
Right.
But there's a culture of character that you can't see through social media.
Yeah.
And there's a culture of excellence that you can't see through social media. So I think, and our kids don't have it, they're tiny, right?
Right.
But like you go to New York, like if you go get a nice expensive meal in Kansas City, it's going to be in a nice part of town. And it's going to be in a nice building. New York City, everything's, like it's all melded together.
Right.
You have someone, which granted you have, Fifth Ave, but like
Right.
as far as like being outside of just like that part of Manhattan, like if you're in Brooklyn, you can have a shop that repairs cell phones for $20 an hour next to a Michelin-rated restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so your kids learn that a culture of excellence is not conditional to a certain area.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool. And then you start to see a culture of good character is not conditional to a certain section of town.
Yep.
Or a certain appearance.
Yes.
And so that's what I like about it. Because, like if you get in an elevator, at like a hotel and there's a guy with a suit, what do you just assume? Obviously extremely professional. Right. Probably makes a really good living. But if you don't know who Casey Neistat is and he gets on your elevator, you're like, who is this guy? Like, does he deliver pizzas?
Yeah, he might be homeless.
And he's worth, like $20 million.
Right.
And so like that's the thing that I will say I'm excited about, so that like my kids get a clean slate to learn to recognize character and excellence. Yeah. And be cultured in that sense. Yeah. I think that's what gets me stoked. Or maybe that's my goal right now. And I might regret this in like 20 years. I might be like, that was a bad idea. That did not work. But right now that's what I think.
No, it's good.
And then obviously like the culture of diversity, like you just walked in the studio where like, Jared's comes from a mixed family. Broderick, both his parents are black. Callan, his mom is black and his dad's white. Benji's from Taiwan. Like, it's kind of crazy. But, like, River comes down here. That's all she knows. Right. So it's like, and they're all excellent. They're all, like, crazy talented producer, writers, artists. And it has nothing to do with where they live, what they wear, what they look like. It's just learning to spot excellence or good character.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. It's good stuff.
Thanks, bro.
Okay, I kind of want to go off in a different direction.
Please go wherever. I'll follow.
How do you I'm curious if you have an opinion on this.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. You should have interviewed my wife.
We'll do one with her too.
Yeah. Honestly, though.
This concept in the music industry right now that I'm not in the music industry. I'm an outsider. I enjoy music.
It's awesome.
I play guitar. I've done stuff for church. You know what I mean? Like,
still valid. Dude.
I'm by no means a music producer, but so as a layman, there's the cool thing I think that's happening with social media. You mentioned social media, so that's where I want to go on this.
That's great.
This concept with social media of artists who are using social media to essentially blow up. Like, so basically, we talk about like, even on social media or even, in general, there's this concept of like, you can, everyone only sees when you blow up, but there's a lot of work before that.
Absolutely.
But I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm seeing a ton of people right now who are like almost making like one-hit wonders. They're making cool reels.
Yeah.
And or they're making them public so that people can use them as reels. And they're using basically social media as a catalyst to drive people to Spotify, drive people to whatever, I'm just curious your opinion on what are you seeing? The good, the bad, the ugly. Maybe it's all good, maybe it's all bad, whatever. But I'm just curious because I would also say that like you're, from what I know of you, you produce for other people.
Yep.
You've done music a long time, but you also have some monikers that you do stuff like for Musicbed and under different names. Yep. But you haven't done anything as like Zane that I'm aware of.
That's an interesting conversation. Yeah.
So I do want to get there at some point.
Yeah. You're very attentive.
But I think it's interesting, like, because I feel like you have more of a low key perspective on. You don't necessarily care about just trying to put out something out there that just goes to the moon. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
That's why I think you can speak on it, if that makes sense.
one, your perspective is crazy good and your intuition's really good. That you're clearly noticing that. And as someone who, as you say, you're not in the music industry, that's fine. But we've all consumed music our whole lives.
For sure.
And music or like art and sports are the two things that like 90% of the world does and enjoys doing and keeps up with, but only like 0.01% of people make their living doing it.
Right.
It's like you and I are not in the NFL. We do not play for the Chiefs, but we both probably watch it and love it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And like before, when you walked in, we were literally in a diehard conversation about Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. I was very flustered. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm an adult. I shouldn't let that bother me. But to your question, there's a lot there. So I'm going to do my best to unpack it. So if you need, just kind of bump me in the right direction if you need.
Yeah.
I'm going to try really hard to externally process this thought. I think that I don't know that social media is necessarily a bad thing for music. I don't want to be Metallica when streaming came out and they're like, this is evil and it's the worst thing to ever happen.
Right.
They were clearly wrong. Like, and all those dudes now make more money than, you know, they would be making now because people don't have to go to a record store to buy a Metallica record. They can go stream it on Spotify or Apple Music. And there's like good data, which to be fair, those companies need to pay better. They don't pay that good in retrospect. Like, but there is data that shows like, because more people have access to it, more people are listening. You're making less per listen, but more people are listening.
Yeah.
So it's like a really interesting thing. I make more money off of Spotify than I ever did touring the country and selling physical CDs in the bands I was in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those CDs reached $10 and you sold them one time, whilst I get paid like 0.006 cents from Apple. But I make more off of 0.006 because more people have access to it.
Just sheer volume.
So that feels like a good base to like kind of where I'm going. Social media feels a little bit like maybe like a performance enhancing drug, like for someone who wants to get ripped or healthy. I don't think it has the same results to everyone that does it. And I think a lot of people potentially can be very let down by it. I think it can become a bit of a comparison trap. What I'll say is I don't know that getting in the system of social media to blow up, as you said, is worth the side effects. And the side effects being you're on social media to try to blow up, which means you're comparing yourself. Blowing up is the end goal. I've always been a big fan of the story of the tortoise and the hare. I'm sure you're familiar with it. The tortoise actually wins the race because he's slow and steady.
Yeah.
And that's my personality. I know I'm a bit of an outlier. Some of it's because I live in the Midwest, and the speed's a little bit slower than if you lived in LA or New York, and maybe even Nashville. I think that you said it really well. The new one-hit wonder is like a shared reel. It's kind of crazy. Now, I know people that do that, and they have to keep doing it. And I have friends that have continued to keep doing it, and it's worked. Monetarily speaking, it's really worked really well, but they're full-on slaves to the algorithm, and that's really tough.
Yeah.
I think good art does speak for itself, but I do understand that certain genres, there's really only a window. We don't know a lot of 40-year-old new pop stars.
True.
You know, Justin Timberlake can go put out a record at 45 because he's Justin Timberlake, and he blew our minds at 25. You know, but the new pop artists on the scene, you don't see a lot of that. I saw some kid, his name's like Bodie or something. I'd never heard of him, but he was on, after digging, he was on like American Idol maybe?
The Voice.
The Voice.
Yes, which we love The Voice.
Okay,
Yeah,
shout out to The Voice.
Yeah.
I like Morgan Wallen, and he was on The Voice.
Yeah.
So, but I don't watch The Voice. My friend Crystal was on The Voice. Shout out Crystal if you watch this. She's super talented singer, songwriter in Nashville. She was on The Voice, and we actually, my wife and I, while my wife was pregnant actually with River, we went and were her like family support at The Voice. So we were like there for all our interviews.
Wow.
And we're backstage while she was performing and stuff. And it was pretty cool actually. It was
That's
a fun
cool.
experience. But I've seen The Voice one time, and it was at The Voice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about it. All that being said, I didn't know who this kid was, but like he clearly got onto The Voice. He's very talented, but he's like a dad. And I was like, whoa, you just don't see that very often. You don't. Do you remember when Michael Ketter was on one of those shows?
Yes.
Yeah, and like it was just odd that someone
Yes.
who's like a family guy, who's not to be like crass, but like just like a hot 20-year-old guy, you know, was just like on one of those shows. So all that being said, he clearly must have done a good job. I don't know if he won. I have no clue. I saw like Brandon Lake like brought him out on stage in LA. That's how I found out because I follow Brandon from back in the day. But like I looked through this guy. He's not a kid. I almost said this kid's reels, but like I looked at this kid's social media. Like, okay, well, what has this guy done? Well, that's how I found out he was on The Voice. But he's making reels nonstop.
Yeah.
Well, one of my good friends, Josh Scott, just gave like a pseudo TED talk at a conference I was at, and he said that like content has to be the sawdust. Are you familiar with the sawdust analogy? So if I butcher this, all the historians can put it in the comments, but of your YouTube. Basically, like Ford was making the Model T out of wood. And so they had all this leftover sawdust, and they were like, we are accumulating so much sawdust. What can we do with it? And then some genius was like, hey, Henry, you can make charcoal out of it. And he was like, so you mean to tell me all this leftover byproduct can then be sold for something else? And so he's like, sick. So he makes Kingsford charcoal. It became the biggest charcoal company in the world from leftover byproduct. So his goal was to make cars. And he said, what can I do with the byproduct? So what Josh basically says is content has to be the sawdust. The second you start making content, you'll never make the product. And so I was watching this kid, and he's got I get like you put out a single and you try to go viral with the already made single. But like if you don't do that, you're just chasing content, and you're never actually going to grow to your potential as like a producer, writer, anything. The best writers I know, their Instagrams are filled with photos of their kids, or like they shoot film photos and they put those up. Like you barely know they write songs because they spend all of their waking hours, professionally speaking, writing songs and producing records, you know, and we've just been led to believe that the loudest voice is the right voice. And that's what I mean by, like I said, I told you I was going to go all over the place.
That's good.
And you can
No, it's so
put
good.
some like bowling ball bumpers on this conversation if you need to. But yeah, it's like you don't want that. You don't want that. It looks good. And for every one person who's got a thing that got shared 1 million times, there's 1 million people whose stuff gets shared one time. I almost cussed, so I didn't. Keep it PG.
I can always bleep it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I actually think it's so funny when bleeps happen in podcasts. But yeah, so it's just a weird deal. I have this kid who a buddy connected me with, and we might work together. We'll see. He's like for sure doing the game a little bit. And that's where I think it is healthy, because like if you live in, Paducah, Oklahoma,
right?
You got a town of 2,000 people, but you love playing guitar, you write songs. At this point, your fans consist of your mom and a couple guys from your high school. Get on the internet, get on Instagram. Like the world is at your doorstep. So see, it's like a weird double-edged sword.
Yep.
So like figure out, have it be a means to an end. Like don't have it be, an end, because the guys I know who content got them something, they had to keep making content because that's the way it was consumed, and that's all people care about. Like if I made hamburgers to prove to you that I was like a really good chef, you just wanted me to make you burgers the rest of every time I was around.
Right.
Because that's what you had. You had a burger. You didn't have a filet or, like pan-seared cod or something. No, dude, you had a burger. And so you'd know me as a burger guy. If I try to, and like I say this as someone who like, I'm in a project called Utah, and we hired a company to take over our social media. They make videos for us and all. So like we're in them, but like we shoot every Friday, and they like put it together, and they like put it all out on social media. But like if I become a personality on social media, I'm not a producer. I am a producer, but you don't think of me the same way. I don't know.
No.
What are your thoughts on all that?
That's a good question.
Because if you say like I think there's a lot of purity to a consumer, and how they perceive. Like I love my wife's take on music. She can't play an instrument, she can't sing,
right?
but like when she feels something in music, because it can purely be felt. So like, all this being said, someone who's very creative, what are your thoughts on all this stuff?
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting culture's in a really interesting place, and I think it's cool that so again, I think it's going back to really the highlight of what you're saying is social media is a tool.
Yes.
And as soon as you start to use it as more than a tool, if you start to use it as the product or as the actual thing that you're creating, which again gets kind of hairy too, because I mean, I know people who are content creators, like they literally just make social content for brands.
Totally.
And that's their career, right?
Yeah.
I do think that there is something kind of hairy in that, in that you don't know how long these platforms will exist, and you know there's that aspect of it.
Totally.
But I do think at the end of the day, like, it's a tool. If you can learn to do it well, to do it healthy, to use it as a catalyst. I love the term. It's a performance enhancing drug.
It sort of feels that way.
I love that. The only thing is, obviously it's not illegal, so it's
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But
like
PEDs are only illegal if you play in the NFL.
Right.
You and I can go use them, and nobody cares. They'll just be like, "Wow, no, you got big.
Well,
like
bro,
you're super strong."
You
know?
just skipped leg day for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, for real though, like literally.
Yeah, no. So I think, to wrap it up, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on my perspective.
Sure.
But I do think that, like, it's a tool. I think the problem that most creatives, in people who are trying to get into social right now, are, and I've even had to fight this, even with things like this and with other, you know, creative endeavors, whatever, of like, how do you not make that the thing? I'm not making content for social media. Yep. I'm making, what's the substance of what I do?
What's the product? What's the sawdust?
Exactly. No, I love that. Okay, I want to talk Musicbed.
Can't wait.
Because
love those guys. I'm
really curious. Again, you produce, and if I'm butchering anything that you know that I think I know about you, you can correct me. Obviously.
One time a counselor called me Zach, and I didn't correct him. If that tells you anything about my personality, so I may not correct you.
So you won't correct me.
No, I will.
Please correct me. Please correct.
Respect.
So what I'm curious when Musicbed is it simply another form of revenue from like an artist perspective?
Sure.
Is it like, okay, as a, you know, we creatives know this in general, like if you're a photographer, you got to have multiple streams of revenue.
Totally.
If you do video, whatever, you got to have multiple streams of revenue. Can it simply be this for you and for others? Or is there more to the artistry of what you're creating for Musicbed specifically?
It's a great question. My friend Jordan Kreitz has this great thing. He says a table needs 3 legs to stand. Ironically, we have a 3-leg table right
Ironically.
Here. What are the chances? But yeah, so it's like photographers need to have multiple revenue streams. Musicians are no different. I think that there is a common misconception in the industry that licensing is like this like simple throwaway byproduct. If I had $1 for every time someone was like, "Can we go get coffee and kind of pick your brain about licensing?" I've got like 20 songs I've never put out, and I just kind of want to put them on licensing. I would just be like a trillionaire. It would be amazing, actually. And the amount of pain it's caused me as someone who hates conflict to be like, dude, if they never came out in the first place, they probably aren't going to be good for licensing. Like, you didn't think they were good enough for people to hear.
Right.
What makes you think the company with a revenue stream is going to like them? That was brutal. So I want to apologize to anybody that offended. But it is another revenue stream. I know a lot of people that treat licensing a lot like there's a disparity in how they treat their licensing who are in licensing versus maybe if they have an artist profile of some sort. I am in the camp where most of my work that is pushed to licensing is artistry. I really think it is. Utah is absolutely, and for all intents and purposes, we're producers, but it's like a band. It's me and Jared, and we treat it like artists. We actually had a call today with a company who wants to work with us, doing some stuff with our music, and they were like, would you be interested in like doing another project that's like Utah, you know, so that, you know, so you can do it in another capacity? We're like, not at all. I have no interest in doing that because Utah is an artist. And we love making Utah, and like it does well on DSP, thankfully. Very grateful for that. Have a really awesome team of people that help make that happen. But to me, I'm going to write music that I believe in because I don't want it to just do well on sync. I want it to do well on DSP. DSP as in like streaming platforms for anybody who didn't know what that was. But yeah, it's like, you know, Spotify, Apple, Amazon is getting bigger, you know, all those.
Right.
But I have friends who like they look at the data, they go, they hit up, you know, music supervisors and go, what's the topic people want right now? Oh, I mean, right now everybody's wanting songs about winning. So it's like, okay, bet. We'll just go make a bunch of songs that sound like Coming In Hot by Andy Mineo, and they'll be about winning. And they do that, and they make a good living, and they don't really care. We're not super close, but a friend of mine told me one time he has no emotional connection to the music he's creating. I don't know what that's like. I'm not wired that way.
Yeah.
That to me is someone who's extremely administrational that has developed the ability to make music.
Yeah.
And actually, ironically, he's maybe one of the most talented people I've ever met. I'm not wired that way. Like, I don't like think the Enneagram is like the be all end all, but like, I'm like, pretty sure I'm either like I know my tri type is like 974. So like in fear, in anger or whatever, I definitely look like a 9. Most of the time, I look like a 9. In fear, I look like a 7, and in like the feeling or whatever, where the 4s are, the heart space, or the shame space, I look like a 4. So it's like the perfect equation to be like, this has to mean something to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's awesome, and sometimes it's a pain in the butt. So yeah, I think I think it can simply be a revenue stream, but the person that it's simply a revenue stream for is someone who is already killing it.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough deal. I see a lot of heartbreak in licensing. I've had a lot of friends try to get in, don't get in. So I've had friends get in and it doesn't work. It's just crazy. But what's crazy about all those guys, they went on to be like brilliant filmmakers, like crazy stuff. Like it's so clear they were going to soar high. It just was like where,
right?
Like what was the vehicle they were going to soar in?
Yep.
You know, which is super cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so still on this a little bit. What is like, when you think of, because obviously just like anything, it even Musicbed specifically, it's a platform, right?
Totally.
They are a business.
Totally.
They have, they have to hit whatever. And so it's just like, it could be the equivalent of being on a social platform, or it could be there's just a bunch of people making stuff, right? Some stuff takes off, some stuff doesn't, right? I'm assuming, and behind the scenes of Musicbed, just because I have no idea, I've been, just so you know, for context, I've been a user of Musicbed for almost 6 years, probably.
It's a long time.
And I've been using Utah in videos for that entire time.
I absolutely love that.
Thank you. No,
thank you. I owe you coffee.
Yeah, bet. No, for real. Like I just, even just to go off on a tangent here real quick, I would 100% say that like the stuff you guys have creating it for a place like Musicbed where it can be licensed,
sure, has
enabled people to use music in more reasons than just listening and enjoying.
Yeah.
And I think from a person who uses Musicbed, I think that's a really cool thing as an artist to be able to say, right? Is like, my music doesn't just necessarily, it's not just enjoyed by people, it's actually able to be used by people to create other emotions, other feelings through filmmaking, through whatever they're doing. And I think that's one thing that's really cool with Musicbed. So
totally.
So anyways, that's super random.
I love that.
I just wanted to throw that in there because I do really appreciate what you guys have done on Musicbed. Okay, let's talk the future for you.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to hear, like, I mean, you're a low-key guy. I knew this conversation was going to go this way because I had some, even just from the one time we met, I was like,
totally.
He's a feeler. I know he's
bro.
like, I know he's an artist to his core. You know what I mean? So I'm you're doing
feel
awesome.
every cut.
You
feel them all. My wife said she kills me by 1,000 paper cuts. She's the strong one in our marriage.
Yes.
She's the rock.
No, I could totally see that.
Yeah, bro, for sure.
Oh
man, it's so funny.
I just want to hear, like, what's the next 20 years look like?
Dang, man. I think, like, I am like, oof. You caught me in the midst of just like, I would guess chronologically, if we can bring the Bible into this.
Yeah.
It's a book. It's great. Read it. It's available at every Mardell's. Every single one of them. Yeah. So when, like, the story of the Jesus asleep in the boat, and he's like, everybody's freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, the only part of the story we get is that the waves are up.
Right.
You have to think at some point the waves weren't up and Jesus was still in the bottom of the boat, and everybody thought life was fine.
Yep.
And then the waves got a little bigger, and they still thought life was fine. And then at some point they lost their mind because the waves got too big.
Yep.
I feel like I'm on, like, the waves are starting to get kind of big, and I'm like, I think I'm fine, but I don't know if I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to be completely, like, fully transparent of that story, and, like, but I'm trying to be wise because I know the Lord and I'm trying to go wake up Jesus now.
Right.
It's not bad, but, like, I need direction from you, God, because I really don't want to sail in a direction that hurts my family or my kids, or my creativity or the relationships I've formed with, like, amazing people. So, yeah, that's where I'm at in this, like, exact moment. Like, I sleep pretty good, and I've, like, not slept good the last, like, 3 days. Sorry if that's too transparent, everybody, but everybody's like, I came here to just relax and learn from Noah, man. This is Zane guy. But next 20 years, I've thought about it, man, because, like, everything changes.
Yeah.
Like, 20 years ago would have been 2003, right? Yeah, my math's correct.
Yeah, that was right.
Metallica was furious about iTunes, or no, Napster, right? Was it Napster or, like, LimeWire or something? Yeah, they were furious. That was 20 years ago. The way people have made money in music has changed like 10 times since then.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I'm a little bit like, I don't want to be an old head who's like, nah, man, I made records this way and I use the same interface I used in 2023, and who cares? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, why are we on USB-C is a great connector. Like, why would I upgrade, to USB-R? Like, what's the point? I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So the next 20 years, like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how to care for my family, wife and kids included. How do I build something that inspires my kids to go out there and do something wild? Because in 20 years, I'll have a 24-year-old daughter.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yep.
I'm not qualified for that. But luckily, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm still not qualified for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if we're talking goals and dreams, I want to have worked with great people, made some great records that people were into. Like, I want to have, like, made some business decisions, like, some personal ones that bless my family, and try to have made good choices. I want relationally to, like, be friends with some excellent people. Like, earlier in this deal, we talked about, like, the culture of good character and the culture of excellence. I would love if the people that, like, are having dinner at my kitchen table, I would love if the people that, like, hang out with my kids to be excellent and to have great character. I would love, love, love that. I would like to, I mean, like, if we're being candid, I would like to have, like, shaped some of musical culture.
For sure.
Like, I don't think that's, like, a prideful thought. Like, I'm not trying to be Kanye, but, like, I would like to have done something where people would be like, I've wanted to do that because I listened to this record Zane did.
Yep.
Or, like, I didn't think to use, like, pianos or synths that way because I just like the way Zane did that. we talked earlier today. We were talking about like our friend Cassie. She's like this monster bass player, plays for a ton of big bands. And like one of our favorite things about her is she makes the band better. Like it's not like she makes the set better. Like she's playing for Brooke Fraser right now.
Cool.
And like we're actually going down tomorrow to watch that. But like,
Nice.
But like, dude, like Brooke Fraser's already good enough. Like,
Right.
Like, but somehow Cassie will find a way to like make her sound even better.
Yeah.
And that's just such a gift. But as a producer, oof, that's where I want to be. Like, people like pull things out of them creatively and emotionally that, change the trajectory of a couple people's lives because of the records we took the risks on making. And I don't know if that looks like selling a catalog. I don't know if that looks like being with, Musicbed for 20 more years. I hope I am. I love those people. But like, some of those people are like close friends. So, 20 years from now, man, I definitely, I want to have impacted culture of music. I'd like to be the kind of guy that people, would like my opinion on things. I hope I can earn that place. That's a place that you earn. You can't. I think it's a fallacy because people can, put up a clip of them spewing their ideas that all of a sudden they're an expert, and that's not true.
Yeah.
You can tell who's not usually, but yeah.
That's good.
20 years, man. That's crazy.
I know that was a long.
No, I love that though. I have to think. I live kind of in the moment, and I'll like squeeze all the juice out of a moment.
Yep.
Nice thing about that is I always have juice to drink.
Right.
But, sometimes it can like things will just sneak up on me.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's a good question.
No, that's good. I love your answer.
Thanks, man.
I think even when we just the episode we shot this past weekend with Monfoy, it's like ultimately good creative, good art. One, it's human.
It is.
And it serves others.
Totally.
And I think if we're all putting our energy there, we're going to be a lot better off.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, so I want to talk, just to kind of close here.
Sweet.
How much time we got? Let's see, we're going about 40 minutes.
I'm rocking. I'm good.
There's kind of two things I want to hit. I want to hit one thing first because I want to make sure we hit it, and then if we have time, we'll go to the other one.
Let's go.
To kind of someone in your position, there's a young gun out there wants to produce.
Let's go.
She's whatever.
Let's go, man.
They're like, I don't know where to start, but they're hustling. They got whatever doll they got pulled up.
They got GarageBand.
What's the free with a little plum or whatever it is?
There's Fruity Loops.
FL
Studio.
FL Studio. Yeah.
They've got a cracked license of Ableton.
Yes, yeah. They got whatever the free stuff is.
Oh, easy. I was that guy.
They found an SM58 in the trash.
Dude, they did. They stole from their church.
Right. Yeah, that's the truth. I got a couple of those.
Yeah.
But they just need to hear from Zane. What do I do? Like, how do I start? They don't need a roadmap. They don't need.
Sure.
There may be some who want that. What they really need is to be encouraged. And I would love for you just to encourage the young producers out there.
I would say the first thing, I've been meaning to read this book, but even just the title, I think, is enough wisdom where you don't even have to read the book. But A Long Obedience. They say a long obedience in the same direction yields results. I would say don't be blown around by the wind of what's cool and what's not cool. Don't be blown around by the wind of what your friend can do and you can't do. Don't do it. I had a vision. My buddy Diego was encouraging me when I was young and trying to make it. And he wasn't even in music. He was just kind of a really good older brother type guy to me. And he gave me some wisdom. And then I feel like God kind of gave me this vision of this field. There was all these trees. They just gotten planted. And it's kind of like an oval-shaped field that's probably like 5 or 6 acres big. And there was this one tree up at the top, and it was growing. But all these other trees, they grew so much faster than this tree up at the top of the field. And they'd grow really, really, really fast. And in my dream, like this camera is like panning around the field. So like you'd see the tree up at the most, north side of it, and then pan over to all these other trees. They were growing so fast. But then they'd like all uproot, move around, and they'd start over, and then they'd grow really, really fast. And this just kept repeating over and over and over. And at the end of the vision, it had panned back over to the tree at the north, and it never moved, and it was bigger than every other tree. And I felt like God was kind of telling me, like, stay rooted, stay doing what you're doing. I'll get you where you're supposed to go. It's going to be okay. Do I believe that all the time? No. Yeah. That's because it gets windy. It just gets windy. It doesn't say if the storm comes. It says when the storm comes. And it's like, well, okay, great. But you also can't live in fear and be like, I'm just bracing for the wind, so I'm not doing anything.
Right.
So my first advice is just stay obedient. Stay in the same direction. Figure out if you love it. Like, don't act like you have to make $100,000 a year at 18 making records because some guy on Instagram does. Just make records. Have fun. Practically speaking, I think you just need tools. You just need the ability to try stuff. And we were kind of joking, but there's free stuff. Yep. Get some headphones. Get a MacBook Air, whatever. You don't need all the processing power. Don't put yourself in a bad spot financially because you think you need the best stuff when you can't even utilize all the best parts of it. Like, don't go buy a Ferrari. The speed limit's 80 miles an hour. Right. Your car goes 80 miles an hour. My car goes 80 miles an hour. Like, you get a Ferrari because you have extra. You know what I mean? So don't stress about getting like some crazy MacBook Pro. I've got a buddy who's trying to produce, and he really wants like a super nice laptop. And I just keep reminding him. I was like, bro, till not that long ago, like a year and a half ago, I was on a 2017 MacBook Pro. Yeah. And if I was making records for people, that are in films and stuff, that same 2017 laptop would work for you today. Yep. So just encouraging dudes, like, don't go broke. Like, just get a kit that you can use. Like, get like a little interface, get a microphone, and learn how to use it. And then get lynda.com. That's how I learned. I went to school for music. I went to Full Sail. I didn't learn a ton. Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to hate on Full Sail. It's just not a great school. I have always said that, like, I was like, God, why did you have me go? And I think it's to teach me obedience. Yeah. Because I needed to learn to finish. And a lot of people don't know how to finish. That's real. And it did teach me to finish. But I have this, like, pipe dream that they're going to have me come speak, and they're going to wipe all my student debt. It's so ridiculous, bro.
We'll tag them.
Yeah, tag Full Sail. Have me come speak, wipe my student. I'll speak for free. I'll teach people how to make money in music. Just wipe my student loans, please. Zane Callister, class of 2015. So yeah, I would say get a kit that you can use, and lynda.com's great. YouTube's great too, bro. Like, there's so much stuff on YouTube. Yeah. But the crazy thing about YouTube is you can learn a lot of wrong stuff, a lot of bad stuff. So yeah, practically speaking, man. So that's the practicals. The encouragement is music. This should be an encouragement. It's not going to sound like any encouragement. Music doesn't owe any of us anything. I have a lot of people that will come and talk to me, and they'll be like, oh man, this record should be doing this. It should. It doesn't. There's no should. I've had so many songs. You can ask Jared. Like he'll be like, dude, this one's it, bro. This Utah track's gonna bang, and it's like doesn't do anything. Or I'll be like, man, this one sucks, and then it does really well. Like the consumer decides. We don't decide. Right. You know what I mean? And so, just be encouraged that it doesn't owe you anything, and let that bring you freedom to go create, because it doesn't owe you anything. And you're gonna come up with more songs. Write bad songs. Bad songs are awesome. Failure rules. It literally rules. Successful people stand on mountains of failure. That's what they stand on. They don't stand on mountains of success. They stand on a mountain of failure. And I think the sooner you learn that, the better it's going to be. The encouragement I would say too, though, is just be careful about showing everybody everything you make. There's a weird dopamine hit with like showing people stuff. Yeah. And it's dangerous, man, because you get this weird false sense of arrival. Is it Craig Groeschel that says his mom used to always tell me he's good at tennis? He was like, I appreciate that, but like, it's different than if Roger Federer says I'm good at tennis. Right. You know, and it's like, just be careful, because your buddy who's like slinging pizzas while you're both 17, it can't play an instrument. Dude, he loves you. Bro, that's so good. That's the best thing I've ever heard. And then it's just you shortcut yourself from developing taste. And taste has to be developed in a real, slow, organic way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
There's not a lot of 17-year-old music critics that Rolling Stone cares about. You know, they're all like 40.
Right.
Because they've listened to a lot of music, 10,000 hours.
Yep.
You know? So that would be my encouragement probably.
No, I love that. That's so good.
And honestly, true story, like, you know, message me on social media. I love talking to young people that want to do this because I was a guy and I didn't have a lot of people. Like I grew up in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's like an hour north of Kansas City. There was a couple like scene bands that like did some stuff there, but like I didn't have a mentor. I had no one to look up to.
Yeah.
You know, I traveled around in a bunch of like hardcore bands and just always wanted it bad enough to not quit. And I just would lower my lifestyle to like living in a house with 9 dudes so that I could do music. You know, and thankfully it paid off. And I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed. But I'm like, well, I don't want somebody else to go through that.
Yeah.
But the hard thing now is we didn't have social media really then. So like if someone gave us advice, it was like, that's the only advice we got. Well, now it's like you can sit down at coffee with me and I can tell you something. And you're like, well, let me wait against the 19 people I follow on Instagram that also do this.
Right.
Yeah, but those guys on Instagram don't know you. They didn't sit across the table from you.
Yeah.
They don't, you know what I mean? It's like a weird deal, right?
Yeah. No, it's real. There's a lot of like, you know, the concept of like mentorship and whatever, but like even in like the entrepreneur world, there's like this concept of like, well, who are your like, oh, like Gary Vee's my digital mentor.
Oh, interesting.
Or like Chris Do, or like,
okay.
You know, just these guys or girls, whatever, who are influential. And I do think there is something to that. There's something to like picking up things that they're adding value and they're putting in work to make sure they're adding value to people who are listening. And so
it's awesome.
Take it again as the tool, as a way to adjust.
Way to bring it back. I totally agree. It's no different than reading a book on business. It's just still not the same as like forming a relationship, you know, with someone in your hometown who knows you, knows whether you're late to stuff or not. Yeah. Knows whether you actually work hard. It's like, you know, going to the doctor. Like, you have to be honest about your symptoms or you're not getting fixed. Right. Like, that's why people are like, don't WebMD stuff. Because WebMD doesn't have a clue what you're going through.
Right, no context.
And you're not even telling the truth. Yeah. You know, or you're downplaying it or you're like upplaying it. Yeah. Overplaying it. So, yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. All right, last question.
Let's go.
We got...
How we doing? I mean, I'm great on time.
Yeah, we're doing good. I want to make sure we get this going and then we'll...
If we wrap up by 4:45, well, actually probably 4:40. I mean, I'm chilling. We'll be good.
Sweet.
You ask good questions.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thanks, man. I want to talk about. This is where I like to kind of end.
Okay, bet.
Really, this concept of like, and you kind of hinted at it in the beginning with like kids and family and stuff, but. Yes. I would love to dive deeper, if you feel so inclined, into what does it look like to have healthy rhythms within the context. So obviously, like, rhythms meaning like day-to-day life. Like, the kids are nuts.
Oh, yeah.
The wife's on you for something, you know, like...
I make tons of mistakes, man.
Work is whatever, like... You know, on your worst day and on your best day, is there anything that you do, that you guys try to do, like, on a semi-regular basis that would be considered a rhythm? And then I would also say, like, feel free to tie in anything else, like spirituality.
Sure.
Tie in, like, does that make sense?
It does make sense.
It's really broad. Question. It's really broad, but this is where I like to kind of wrap things up and kind of tie things up.
Yeah, I think it has to be broad too.
Yeah.
Because everybody's different.
Yeah.
I think a rhythm is something that's repeated. Otherwise, it's just a riff, you know. I think the Bible's cool because it says, walk with me, learn the unforced rhythm of grace. You know, it says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Before that, but I think the unforced rhythm of grace, I think rhythms require grace. If we're talking about music's interesting because it's pitches and rhythm. And a lot of people be like, oh, did you quantize that? And meaning that, like, you know, the grid is perfect, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Music that's perfectly quantized like a grid actually doesn't even sound good. There's a rhythm of grace, and there's a groove, and there's a pocket. Like Michael Jackson's producer is famous for saying that, like, the snare hit on the 2 would be early and the snare on the 4 would be late, and it would make the pocket feel bigger. It'd make the bar feel bigger. And we all know Michael Jackson was very successful. And I guarantee you, had that been perfectly quantized, it wouldn't have the feel it has. So I think rhythm, it's important to have feel in your rhythm. I think it's important to have intentionality in your rhythm. And that's like the biggest thing for me. I definitely am not nailing it. But I do think I've tried really, really hard to be intentional. Whether that's like I think my wife would love if we had a weekly date night, and I've got to do better about something in that regard.
For sure.
But where I don't do a regular date night, I am very observant of the responsibilities she's been tasked with her job. And it's not uncommon for me to observe, that she needs a little extra time. I throw the kids in the car. We go get donuts. I take that opportunity to spend a little extra time with just my kids. And I acknowledge that because if she can get her work done, she can be present in the way that she wants to be with her children.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the frustration isn't that, like, you know, she's busy. It's that, like, she's giving up something for something. She's giving something she loves for something she enjoys. But you know what I mean? So
for sure.
That's not a rhythm, but that's a little bit of the unforced rhythm.
Yeah, that's practical.
Every song needs drum fills, man. And that's a drum fill moment where you're like, hey, we were supposed to have a snare on the 4 here. We just rolled right into a tom groove, a.k.a. go grab donuts with your kids. Rhythmically, we do half days on Fridays. With a few exceptions here and there where it's like, dude, I just have a ton I have to get done. So is it cool if I go in at 10 and get an extra couple hours of work on my Friday? That would be a rhythm that we have. The macro rhythm is just like, we do not fill our weekends with stuff to do. We really don't. We like try to have, literally River calls them Family Fridays. She thinks it's literally called Family Friday. And I think it's so fun because it is. It's like this half day thing. Our rhythms look like I take River to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Brooke picks her up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I get a little moment with my kids. The intentionality of every time I take River to school, it's 6.5 minutes away. And when we take our first left turn, I always ask her what she's excited for at school. And I wonder if she would even fully know that I'm doing this every time.
Yeah.
And then when we are 800 yards from our last right turn, I say, what should we pray for today on the way to school? And she almost always says, Mom and Shepherd, or what is she? She calls him brother sometimes. Mom, Sheppy or brother boy. Or but yeah. And usually it's like, she'll be like, let's pray for my friend Rozzy. She's got this friend at school she really likes. But so creating rhythms, that's a rhythm.
Yep,
you know
for
what I
sure.
mean? And not everything's a snare drum, that you hear the loudest. Something's a shaker, it's back in the back to help move the rhythm forward or whatever, if we're sticking with musical analogies. But yeah, intentionality is just, dude, I've not been married super long. I'll be married 7 years in November. But intentionality seems to be just something that's stayed pretty true to a ingredient for success, or, success in the terms of marriage. Spiritually, rhythm is interesting, right? Like, walk with me, learn the unforced rhythm of grace. I think I'm learning that in a new way, that rhythm isn't forced. That ties back to of just the more rigid rhythm is, the worse it feels. But you need rhythm, right, to have a song. It can't be all over the place. Otherwise, that's jazz. Just kidding. But fusion of some sort, probably, or math core. But it's like so I've got said a little bit about my pockets of work. I also treat my job like a blue collar job. I'm not one of those people that's like, I work when I get inspired. Heck no. No thanks. I think inspiration shows up. You just got to stay ready. Is it any menu that says you don't have to get ready if you stay ready? I just think that's so good. But yeah, I'm like, I work Monday through Friday. Like, I take off at about 5 o'clock every day. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I get here at around 8:45. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I get here around 9:15. But I always leave right around 5 o'clock. and I make dinner for my family pretty much every night.
Love that.
I love cooking. I'm not great at it, but I really like it. And God is smart, man. I married a girl that doesn't like to cook.
Hey.
And that's okay. That's like super okay with me because I like it. And she likes when I cook. So it's great. But yeah, creating those kinds of rhythms. Also, there's a rhythm in our life where my wife and I trade off every night who puts which kid to bed. So like tonight is my night with River, and which means it's her night with Shep. So every other night, like our kids get a little moment with us. You know, we read a book, we pray, we do these songs that we sing every night. So it's like creating rhythms within that. I had a good friend who's like a great dad, and he was like telling me kids need consistency, and consistency has nothing to do with when you do it, it's that you do it. And I was like, dang, that's actually so, dude, you know, because our kids are about the same age, right? 4 and almost 2.
Yeah, and then we have a 2 and almost 1.
Yeah. Okay, so you're littler, but still. Like, how freeing is it to know that, like, you're not, like, a slave to a schedule?
Yeah.
But every night, read to your kids. Every night, pray with your kids. It's not that you do it at 7:05 and immediately after bath. Dude, that's brutal.
There's no way.
There's no way. Not for people like us. There's a way for someone else. God bless those people. I want to be more like those people. But, yeah, so those are the rhythms in our life, and they change, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's why there's so many BPMs in music. Like, you can't listen to, you know, dance at 110 for the rest of your life. You want to hear, you know, slow jams at 95.
Yeah.
You want to hear EDM at 140. You know, you just want to work your way through all of them.
Yeah.
It's different rhythms, dude. So,
I love that.
yeah, I think that would be ours for the most part. Work. You said work. You said family. And then spirituality. Rhythms for me, this is going to sound crazy. My thing right now is just intentionality is something that means a lot to me. It's a cornerstone of my life. But like my faith life is like, I wish I was the dad. And I got up and read my Bible this morning before my family got up. But I wish I was that freaking cool dad who had like a chair and like every morning his kids got up and there he was reading his Bible. And that might be me someday. Yeah. It's not me right now. Yeah. But it's like, it's just choosing to like go to God, go to a father in any circumstance and make it consistent. Like you should pray without ceasing. I don't even know what that means. That sounds crazy. Like, should I be praying right now?
Yeah.
Like, should I pray right now? It's like, I think it has more to do with like in everything, be prayerful. And so it's not a rhythm. And I hate even saying it, but it's where I'm at spiritually right now. It's just more, it looks a little messy to be completely honest. I think I've spoke on it earlier. I don't know if we were recording yet, but yeah, I feel like I'm in the boat. Jesus is asleep in the hull of it. And the waves are getting a little bigger. I want to be wise enough to go down there now and be like, hey, this might get bad. Like, do you want to come fix it?
Yeah.
You know?
Before
it gets bad. Like, do you want to, I don't want to pretend I know how to sail in 10-foot waves. Yeah. I have no clue what I'm doing. Yeah. You know?
That's good.
Yeah, man.
That's good, man.
Sick, bro.
Well, thank you so much, bro.
Dude, thank you.
I love your insight, and I think
hope it helps somebody.
Yeah, I think it's gonna help a lot of people. I'm really excited for the future for you. I'm excited for your next 20 years.
Dude, thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, man.
That was a jolt.
Whatever.
I'm an internal processor, so I'll go home with that one. I'll be like, oh, what do I want for my next 20 years?
What am I gonna do in 20 years?
Babe, what do we want to do for the next 20 years?
No, I love that, man.
That's
I'm
really
so excited for you. I love what you're doing. I'm a fan,
dude.
For real.
Thank you, man.
The stuff that you've worked on has impacted me.
That's awesome.
Personally,
thank you, man.
It's impacted the art that I've created.
It's
impacted.
Go, bro.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful for you.
It means a lot.
And I am a fan as a person.
And you're a friend.
And I'm a fan.
Friend first, fan second.
Friend, that's right.
There we go.
But for real, I thank you so much.
Dude, thank you.
I know it was short notice, and
I'm stoked for this.
We put it together, but thank you.
Yeah, man.
All right, bro.
Dude, blessed. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, dude. Thanks so much for joining me for episode 2 of the Scene Creative Podcast. I hope it encouraged you, inspired you. I hope you're able to take something away from today's conversation and apply it into your own life, into your own process, into your own projects that you're currently working on. So if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and comment down below. What are you going to apply to your life? And what was your biggest takeaway from today's podcast? I'm going to be reading all those and engaging with you guys, as well as go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can be the first to know when next week's episode drops. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify or Google Podcast or Apple Podcast, however you listen to your audio podcast, if you could leave us a review on the platform that you're listening on, that'd be really helpful. I'll see you next week for episode 3 of the Scene Creative Podcast.